How's everyone doing circuit breaker? I hope everything has been good for everyone. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about something that is very close to all of our hearts. I'm going to be talking about basic financial and actually the payment timeline of project marketing. I think that now with this trend that's going on now in the entire market is that project marketing is becoming like a core source of income for a lot of our agents. But there's a little bit of things that a lot of us are still very unfamiliar with. Just to give you a background, I've been in the industry for about 5 years now, and I've been doing project marketing since day one. Because that was where I began. I started project marketing for a couple of very simple reasons. It's also to inspire some of you here who are just started out as well. Is that why I embarked on project marketing? Very simple reason. Because if you were to start on project marketing, it's actually a huge, I would say, a huge advantage that you have for a new launch project because of the sheer power or the sheer economies of scale of the developer. They're actually able to price it as and when they want it. Of course, I'm not saying that they're going to price it really unreasonably, but they're going to price it reasonably, and you can actually mitigate away the looking for listing portion, and especially and also for the price portion, because the price is more or less fixed, regardless whether they're buying from our agency or other agency as well. So this is something that a lot of agents can actually cope with better. It's something that I myself benefited a lot, and that is why I started project marketing as well. And I think today project marketing is very different from like 5 years ago when I first started in the real estate. 5 years ago, there was a system called tagging, but it wasn't so widely used as well. And previously, when we have tagging systems, right, what happens is, for example, if the commission is like 2%, and then you come in and then you say, hey, Oliver, can you help me present? Then I will gladly do it. The reason is very simple, because if I were to present it for you, I'm going to ask for you for 50-50, right? It's going to ask you for 50-50, and that is something that is very hurting for, especially for non-core agents who might actually bring in the buyers, that's trying so hard to bring the buyers, but yet at the end of the day, they have to split 50-50 pot cut, and that is something that not a lot of people are very well coming off. Yeah, but at the same time, I think that even with a tagging system now, a lot of things are streamlined much better. I think thanks to RPD, I think they've done a really good job. But besides just doing that, I think one of the key elements that we should understand about is actually about the financial and the payment timeline, because many a times today, with a lot of new policies like your ABSD, your SSD, etc., it's no longer so straightforward as in the past. Furthermore, with the LTV, the ABSD, the TDSR, and all these policies that are in place, that is actually help to cool off the market, or rather to stabilize the market, in my opinion, can actually help you to actually look at how things should be done differently. Let me go through the system if you're all right. Everybody okay? All right, let's go. So, one of the things that everyone is looking forward to is the closing is looming. How many of you have ever went to a show flat, right? When you went to a show flat, and then what happens is, after you presented the show flat, the clients love the model. The model is so futuristic. The model is so modern-like looking. And the best part of it all, when they step into the show unit per se, they actually love the layout. They love the finishing that's provided. They love the space that's provided. So what happens is, after you explain the future potential, you talk about the location map, you talk about the model, you go into the show unit, the exact show unit per se, right? So after that, what happens is that most of the time you will actually go to the table, or what is commonly known in our industry as the table closing. But you know what? Table closing is something that a lot of us are actually really fearful about. Why do I say so? Because when we sit down and then the client loves to buy it, but they have certain restriction, and because of these restrictions, we may appear to be unconfident. We may appear to not know our work as well. And sometimes the tagger will actually come in to help you and all. But sometimes if the tagger were to come in and help you to present everything from A to Z, where does that leave you? Like for me personally, I've always used a lot of good taggers around. There are many good taggers in the whole of OrangeTee, but there's something that I always try to present myself. For example, I always tell my clients that, before we enter the show flat, I'm going to allow, say, Deborah. Deborah is the tagger, okay? So Deborah is going to help us to present on the specifications of the show flat, because this is the excuse I always tell my clients, is that fortunately or unfortunately, I visited so many show flats in the whole of Singapore. I can't remember where are all the fridges and where are all the washing machine placed in every place. And that is why I need someone like Deborah. I call her like a product specialist, that she can give me the exact dimensions of the entire house. And these are the things that the taggers are, I always use the tagger for. But there's something that I always do myself as well. It's something that what we call a table closing. Okay, so a table closing, one of the most important thing is actually the timeline of a new launch. So this timeline of a new launch, right? Most of us have probably seen something like that, right? All of us have probably seen a chart, something like that. That is, this is widely distributed in all across the entire show bed in Singapore. So, however, when I first seen this about 5 years ago, I thought that this was so damn messy. Why do I say that it's so damn messy? Because it's like, I don't know where to start. You know what I mean? So one thing that I always tell all my agents and even all my clients is this: if you look at this chart, it's going to seem a little bit confusing. So what I usually do is I show them I draw up something like that. So on the first day, when they actually do a booking, what we call an option to purchase, they actually have to pay a 5% cash. Okay, one thing to take note of is, right, this entire procedure from the booking all the way to the exercise. Exercise, it means to say that you have already confirmed the unit, you come back out at this point in time. It's within 8 weeks. So this 8 weeks time frame is something that all of us have to take note of. Okay, so assuming today, you can take out with me in your calendar, you can look at your phone and your calendar. You can actually look. Today is on the 24th of June. Today we're on the 24th of June. So today's a good day. We have arrived at Oliver Residence. So Oliver Residence, we have decided to purchase a unit, a 2-bedroom. So in this 2-bedroom, we actually decided to buy a 2-bedroom, right? So this 2-bedroom costs $1 million. So with this $1 million, how much is our booking fee actually? With this booking fee, what does it entails? This is what I usually tell my clients. So with this booking fee, because in Singapore, all the option to purchase in Singapore is unique, one and only. So with this one and only option to purchase in the whole of Singapore for every single unit in Singapore, you need this 5% cash for this booking fee that can be paid via transfer, can be paid via via check, or even cashier's order. But you can't use full cash, all right? With this 5% cash, you are actually able to do the booking. With this booking, it can ensure that your house will no longer be taken away by anyone else. Is that clear, everyone? Okay, give me a second. I'm actually saying. Okay, so with this 5% cash book, what will happen subsequently is you will be receiving an option to purchase from the developer directly. So with this option to purchase, what will happen is within 2 weeks, okay, I repeat, within 2 weeks, the sales and purchase agreement will be delivered. So where does this sales and purchase agreement gets delivered to? And this is something as agents we need to be wary of, is that on their booking day, we actually have to ensure that they have engage a lawyer, either referred by you or by themselves or someone that they prefer, that this sales and purchase agreement can be delivered to. Why is this very important? Because personally, when I actually have some clients, they can't decide on the lawyer. When I was like 5 years ago, so I got this really bad experience I want to share with you, is that I actually send the sales and purchase agreement to my client's house. So what happened is, when they were sent to their house, right, they did not give any warning per se. Like, for example, in the next 2 weeks, right, it can be delivered any day. So it delivered on the following Monday. We closed it on the weekend. It was delivered on Monday. But when come Monday, they are actually not at home. So when they were not at home, the sales and purchase agreement could not be delivered. However, one thing about the sales and purchase agreement is that within 3 weeks, the clients has to head down to the law firm to exercise the SMP. So one thing that a lot of people take note, a lot of people are confused is that, oh, so I got a total of 5 weeks to exercise the SMP. Is that right? That is actually not true. It's untrue. Why do I say so? It's because upon the receipt of a sales and purchase agreement, so remember I was telling you everyone earlier on to take out your calendar with me. So today is the 24th of June. Today is a Wednesday, a good Wednesday, and you receive your sales and purchase agreement at your law firm, Oliver Partners, Legal Liabilities, Legal Borders or whatever, on the 26th of June. So when you receive it on the 26th of June, your 3 weeks to exercise the sales and purchase agreement starts from the 26th of June, which is upon the receipt of the sales and purchase agreement. So this is one thing that a lot of people make a mistake about it. And that is why if your clients need some timeline extension, for example, I have some clients who say things like, oh, my parents are going to transfer certain X amount of money over. Oh, I need to release a certain X amount of money from my stocks. I need to release an X certain amount of money from where, etc. Or the source of funds, per se. So in this situation, usually what I do is I'll tell my clients, so how much time do you need? We actually have this 2 weeks window period to play with. So this 2 weeks window period, I will usually tell the developer, the staff, the IC, etc. I'll say, okay, is it possible, since we are booking on the 24th of June, can you send my SMP on the very last date available, which is on the 8th of July? But we try not to play on the last date, all right? So usually I'll say, okay, can you send it to me on the 7th of July? So that your 3 weeks from that you have to exercise your SMP, instead of beginning from the 26th of June, can actually begin from the 7th of July. And this will actually give you more time to play with, give you more time to prepare your funds, etc. So what happens after we exercise our SMP? So after we exercise our SMP, let's say, for example, I head down to the law firm on the 26th of June. So when I head down to the law firm on the 26th of June, I exercise the document. So there are many ways that we can exercise the document, because remember I was telling you earlier that we have up to 3 weeks to exercise the document. And so usually most clients, they will want to exercise it slightly later or somewhere in between. But I usually advise my clients to exercise as early as possible. Why is this as early as possible important? Is because the date that you choose to exercise the document is actually the date that you can be fulfilling your 3 years stellar stamp duty. Okay, everyone clear with me on this? Yes. So after we exercise the SMP, what we have to do is, depending on the date that your lawyer indicates that you're going to exercise your SMP, you have to pay your stamp duty within 2 weeks. So usually, what will happen in most circumstances is that we will tell our clients that, hey, when you head out to the law firm, bring along your checkbook, because when you bring along your checkbook, they're able to issue a check directly for your stamp duty as well. That's supposed to be paid to IRAS as well. And this will actually help you a lot in terms of saving your time, and you don't have to make double trips or even triple trips down to the law firm. And the next thing that will happen is actually within 8 weeks, as I was mentioning earlier on, is that you have to pay your exercise fee, or what we call the 15%. And this 15% can be paid via cash or CPF. All right? So is everyone clear on this new launch timeline? Yeah? Okay. So what happens is that in Singapore, okay, this is my sales pitch that I always tell my clients. In Singapore, whenever you buy a new launch, you're actually very, very well protected. Why do I say you're very, very well protected? Is because in Singapore, payment is only done in cases or what we call progressive payments. And this is something that is contrasting to many other foreign countries. I don't know if any of you have heard of before, like some of my clients who actually bought some neighboring countries. I shall not mention names. They bought some neighboring countries, and what happens is they bought the property at $1 million. So they pay up the $1 million upfront. And when they pay up the $1 million upfront, instead of taking 2 years to complete, they took 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and even 6 years in some circumstances. And then the developer will just tell you things like, oh, we can't get the materials. Oh, we can't get this, we can't get that, we can't get this, we can't get that. And that's why there's a delay in payment. And this is something that where it will actually how should I put it? Or rather, it will actually give a sense of insecurity to our consumers. Whereas in Singapore, I would say that the property policies are actually in favor of owners, homeowners, and actually in sellers, buyers' point of view. And how do I say so? Is that they're trying to create a more fair judgment. All right. So what happens is that they will only get their payment on the completion of certain milestones. For example, the second payment is a foundation work of 10%, and the third payment is actually on the concrete framework, the completion of the brick wall, the ceiling, the completion of doors and windows frame, the completion of car parks. And on the 8th payment, you notice is there's a issuance of temporary occupation permit. What is this temporary occupation permit? It's actually commonly known in our industry as the TOP date. TOP date is basically the date that you can actually move into the property. So when you can actually move into the property and that you're able to get your keys, per se, in layman terms. And what happens is that I think this is something that a lot of people face as well, regardless how big the developer is, because there are always human labor involved. When there's human labor involved, there could always be a certain element of surprise or bad workmanship per se. So with this bad workmanship, right, it can actually cause what we call defects, be it minor or even major. One of the biggest major I've ever seen is that I've ever seen one of the walls of the house is actually painted in grey, because one of the workers who claimed to be a little colorblind actually couldn't see the difference between a grey and a white. So he actually painted one of the walls of the house grey, and then yeah, and that was a disaster, trust me. So in these circumstances, what happens is that the developer actually should rectify within a year, or what we call before they issue CSC. So in Singapore, right, most all the new launches in Singapore are actually given a 1-year defects liability period. This defects liability period is whereby you are able to actually do all your any minor rectifications or any defects that you have discovered in the unit, that the developer will actually help you to rectify it. And this is something that's very important, because a lot of people say, yeah, but why do they have to do it? Because if you understand how the developers work, is that we need to understand from the developer's point of view. With this 100% of payment that they receive, a likelihood of their profit margin lies in the 15% CSC last payment, or what we call the ninth payment, right? So in this ninth payment is actually their profit margin. And that is why the developers are very incentivized to complete the task as they were given. And in Singapore, one of the best things is that, for example, if you were to submit a rectification report, say for example, you find that one of your cupboards is actually torn off and you want them to rectify it. And when you ask them to rectify it, they have to rectify it within a month. So if they do not rectify it within a month, you actually have the rights to engage external vendors to actually fix up the problem. And when they fix up the problem, you're actually able to claim the developer per se. And this is something that is very, very protective of all the consumers in Singapore. And that is what it can also give a sense of assurance to a lot of our clients that they are buying Singapore property, because Singapore property is well known to be very stable and also has a growing at a very steadily rate, and it's also a safe haven, and I'll even call it recession proof per se. And that is something that we need to understand, and we need to give assurance to our clients that this progressive payment is actually in their favor. Okay. Yep. So I'm actually going to move on. So the next thing that a lot of people are actually really lost about is actually what we call the LTV charts. Okay. So in these LTV charts, right, if you look at on the first column, it's actually what we call the first home loan. So what do I mean by the first home loan, second home loan, or even the third and subsequent home loan? Okay, there are many circumstances that most of my clients that I met in show flats, let's say for example, I met client A, Oliver. So Oliver is actually owns a HDB right now, and he's buying his second property. Is he subjected to ABSD? Yes, he is. However, is he considered to be under his first home loan or second home loan? That's the next question that we need to ask our clients is your HDB fully paid up? Okay, if your HDB is not fully paid up, they are considered as the second home loan. Whereas if their HDB is already paid up, they are actually eligible for up to a 75% LTV. And why is this loan to value so important? Because this cash down payment, how much they have to take out, is actually going to be detrimental to their affordability issue in buying the property. Because a lot of them, they actually have to pay ABSD, and some of them, etc., and they're a huge down payment as well. And that is something that we have to take note and make sure that we do not calculate wrongly. Okay. Whereas if you look at the first home loan, your sum of tenure and age of borrower at application. So what does that mean? Okay. So if your loan tenure is up to 30 years, so how does it essentially tells me is that if you want to get a loan of up to 30 years, and even after adding 30 years to your existing age, for example, I'm 30 years old, I'm 29 this year. After adding 30 years old, I'm actually 59. So with 59, I'm actually below 65 years old. I'm actually still qualified for 30 years loan. Whereas, for example, some of my friends, if they're in the age of 40, and if they want to get up to a 30 years loan, they're only able to get, and they want to stretch up to 30 years, they can only get 55% instead of 75%. So if they want to get 75%, what they have to do is, instead of getting a 30 years, they can only get up to a 25 years, because it's capped at 65 years old. And that is why this LTV chart is actually very, very important for all my fellow agents that you can actually use this LTV charts, right, to inspire clients to buy as early as they can. Why do I say so? Because yes, a lot of people have this same misconception. You know, the chicken or the egg comes first, right? It's the same concept. Say, for example, when you are younger, your biggest issue in buying property is not getting a loan. It's actually getting the down payment. Whereas when you are older, down payment seems like a breeze. You are able to afford the down payment, but your problem comes in because your monthly installment is going to be super, super duper high. And that is why I always advise my clients, my friends, that they should try to buy as early as they can. Buy something that is smaller first, because that is probably not going to be the last house they're going to buy. Buy something smaller, buy something they can afford, buy something that's within their affordability range, and just go for it first, so that they're able to progress on their assets progression per se. They're able to progress in their wealth, in their property wealth, so that they are able to multiply their assets, multiply their properties. And that is something that is I take a lot of pride in. I've been in the industry for the last 5 years, and I've done a lot of similar structures that have helped a lot of clients who bought it really early, and they're able to make a flip out of it right now. And when they make a flip, they always remember you. So always remember that, okay? And that is how you can actually able to grow your business exponentially as well. Okay, so ABSD I shall not touch on really long. I think ABSD is something that most of us will understand. You just need to understand that for the first residential property, second residential property, and the third and the subsequent residential property, for Singaporeans 0, 12, and 15. For PRs is 5%, and second and third property is 15%. Foreigners are 20%, companies are 25%, and developers are 25% plus 5% non-replaceable. So, why do I choose to show this slide? It's actually because one of the common mistakes that I see a lot of agents making in the show flat is actually this. Okay, let's say, for example, today I'm going to buy a property together with Deborah, all right? So Deborah owns one private condo, whereas I own nothing, all right? And we were to go and buy together. Are we considered as our first property or second property? We are actually considered as our second property. And because they what the IRAs do is that they actually take on the higher count among the both buyers per se, and that is why we are actually able to, sorry, not able to, or rather we are subjected to consider as our second property. So the next question that some agents actually make is that, oh, since I'm going to own 50% with Deborah, so does that means that I will only pay 12% additional buyer's stamp duty for 50% of the house? No, that's a mistake, okay? You have to pay 12% for the entire property purchase quantum price. So there is actually one thing that I'm going to talk about next is actually what we call the work example. So this is a very simple work example that I've actually prepared. Mr. Tan, age 30, buying the first property at $1 million, granted a loan amount of 800,000. Kindly work out his total payment in cash and CPF, assuming that CPF, the OA, has about 100,000. Calculate the timeline and monthly repayment schedule at the interest rate of 2%. And this is something that I've done a lot of times. What I did was that I actually, recently I've actually started using this OrangeTee app. You know, the OrangeTee agent app. In this OrangeTee agent app, right, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show you guys over here. Okay. There's this tab. It's actually called the financial calculator that I'm used very often. With this financial calculator, you're actually able to use what we call a new home progressive payment that I've used very often. So what I did was that I key in Mr. Tan, property price of $1 million, single, buyer nationality, Singapore citizen, buyer number of outstanding housing loan, first property, age of borrower, 30 years old. Give me a second. The loan tenure, if you take note, it's 30 years as well. Loan to value 75%. The interest rate is at 2%. The good part about OrangeTee is that OrangeTee actually has this option whereby you can actually insert the date of option to purchase. With this date of option to purchase, you're actually able to count when they have to head down to the law firm, by when they have to exercise, by when they have to pay the stamp duty, etc. And with this, you're actually able to see the initial outlay of how much is actually $224,600. However, one thing you have to take note is that earlier on, you remember, we did mention that let's see, there's a 5% and a 15%, right? However, the loan is only up to 75%. With this 75% loan to value, where does the remaining 5% down payment come from? It actually comes from the second payment. If you look at this, it's on the completion of foundation work. So for this 10%, instead of having full 10% that is payable via loan, via your installment, 5% actually has to be paid up via your cash or CPF per se. And that is why if you generate a report, right, you'll notice that on the top hand corner, the initial outlay. Let me show you. The initial outlay is actually 234,000. And then if you scroll down slightly below, after 6 months, your foundation, you have to pay another additional 50,000. And every month you're paying about averaging about 180 over dollars, all the way to TOP is about 2002, and after your CSC is about 2007. You know what's the best part about this? You can actually generate a report, and you can actually, and the report will look something like this. Let me show you. It will look something like this. You're actually able to see a lot of very detailed, and it actually comes with your face, your photo, and it looks really professional. And at the bottom right hand corner for iPhone users, you can actually have a share function. And with this share function, you can actually share to whoever you wanted. You can actually share to your WhatsApp as well. You see, you can actually share to WhatsApp. You can actually send to messages. You can actually send to via WeChat, etc. And even via email. And that is something that is actually very, very professional, and it looks really, really good on you. And this is something that I always advise my agents and a lot of my fellow colleagues to use. And I think that I want to thank OrangeTee as well for doing such a good one. A good app, I would say, financial calculator, so that we're actually able to better understand this as well. Okay, so I hope everyone understand the work example. Saying earlier on, no issues. Okay, one thing that I'm going to talk about next is what we call the common blind spots or even misconceptions that a lot of agents are actually facing. So, for example, the interest rate quoted. You remember earlier on in my work example, I indicate that the interest rate is 2%. So for some of you who are really on the ground, you will know that interest rate is at an all-time low, especially a lot of big corporations choose to expand their business in this point in time, especially the courageous one, like Zoom, skyrocketing. Okay, anyway, that's beside the point. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually the interest rate quoted that you have to give your client. So something that I always advise, I think it's out of ethics, or should I say morals, that for the interest rate quoted, right, I always advise clients, I always advise clients or even agents or even bankers to quote it slightly higher, because in Chinese they say 我算多没关系，算少才会被你骂. Because what I mean to say is, for example, if you quote that the monthly installment is 3,000 a month and it turns out to be 2,007, they'll likely just be like, happy, you know. But if you quote them at 3,000 and it comes back to be 3,005, trust me, you're gonna get a scolding, man. All right, because this is probably the largest investment that a lot of our clients, a lot of the consumers are actually looking at. So yeah, so please be wary of the interest rate that's quoted. Okay, so the next question that a lot of people have always been having problem is actually, when does the SSD begins? So SSD, or what we call seller stamp duty, actually begins from the point of exercise, and this is something that you take note. It doesn't begin from the point of staying in, not from the point of TOP, not from the point of CSC. The only one that is a bit tied up to the TOP is actually for buying ECs, because when you buy an EC, your MOP is actually 5 years, and this 5 years counts from the date of TOP. Okay. And next one is actually what we call a reissue option. So reissue option is I wouldn't say it's common practice, but it's a widely used practice today, especially for clients who are actually trying to sell off their resale flat before they actually buy a new launch per se. And that is why this reissue option, you have to speak to the ICs, and also depends on the developer, because developers are able to reissue, but not different developers work differently, and I think that everyone has a different bandwidth that they are comfortable with for you to reissue as well. Okay, and last but not least, something that I want to touch a bit about on is sequence of funds. So this sequence of funds is something that a lot of agents commonly make. Okay, I'm going to scroll back to some of my slides earlier on. Okay, if you look at this slide of mine, right, if you notice that I actually have a option to purchase at a 50,000, your sales and purchase agreement, your buyer's stamp duty, and also sales and purchase, right? So in these circumstances where they have 100,000, so in this 100,000, where does the CPF actually goes to? The option to purchase 50,000, 5% cash is straightforward. They have to pay via a check or cash order, right? So for the buyer's stamp duty, Are they able to pay? Are they able to pay it via CPF as well? I'm sorry, they're not able to pay via CPF, because you need to understand that the sequence of funds states that the 100,000. Okay, the sequence of funds is as such: you have to use whatever cash you want to use first, followed by your CPF, followed by your loan. So the loan is actually covers up to 75%, right? But the 50,000 on the first payment, the foundation, can actually be covered by your CPF. And your sales and purchase for the 15% cash for the exercise fee, there is a surplus of 50,000 that can be used to pay in your 15%. So you have to pay essentially 150,000, 100,000 in the 50,000 in the option to purchase, 24,000 in the buyer stamp duty, and an additional 100,000 in terms of cash for your for this situation. And that is why a lot of clients always think that, oh, maybe I can actually use my 100,000 to pay my 15% cash or CPF, and then subsequently when the foundation is called, I will take out another 50,000 cash. I save up money, etc. But you can't do that, okay? The moment you want to buy this property, you want to use your CPF. Your CPF will be locked in as a sequence of funds. So the cash, CPF, followed by the loan. Okay. Yep. And I've come to the end of the presentation. I hope that all of you have enjoyed my short sharing, and I hope to see all of you soon. And thank you so much. And yep, thank you and have a nice day. And I hope to see all of you in the office very soon. Thank you. Have a nice day. The end.